All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the program. And today we're going to be talking about a detailed schedule, an example of like a 2-week schedule. Because at this point in the program, we've got, let's see, 9, 10 weeks worth of training, and there's a lot of stuff, and it's all kind of adding up. So I've created an example PDF that you can download in the download section, which is kind of like a bird's eye view of an example week of like how we would integrate all these techniques. And so I'm just going to put it up on the screen during this video, and so Brian and I can talk about it. All right, cool. You can see that, right, Brian?
Oh, yeah.
All right, cool.
So, nice. I like setting stuff up like this too, just because it can get really wonky in your head if, you've got all these techniques and all these things you've been doing, and, how do you, what's important, what's not important, how much time you're going to spend on each thing. And, it can get really overwhelmed really quickly with all this stuff and thinking that you have to do everything all at once. So, or every single day, which is impossible. You could be completely financially independent and still not have enough hours in a day to do everything you've been taught so far every day. Plus you just die, right? Because it's just like, it's just too much. So, and keeping track of it all, right? So this is a nice way to break it down. Like just, if I'm looking at all these techniques, and let's say I have a single purpose, in this case, lucid dreaming. So that's my goal. And then I'm saying, okay, well, here's all these techniques that I have, and some are, sort of foundational techniques that help me get my physical body and my mental body into shape. And, some of them are directed towards certain types of focus, right? A convergent focus, where it's like everything is sort of moving to one point, and other training that's a divergent focus, which is spread open, like an open focus, right? So these are just two examples of that type. And you want to balance those out, but there's also like, okay, what about my physical body? I need to be able to relax it into a certain place and really get it, and maybe, working a little bit with that hypnagogic state, right? Like how long can I suspend myself? Can I have a little fun with myself in this territory, right? Like, okay, it looks like I've been falling asleep really easily. Can I do something to sort of keep myself in that zone of like not quite sleeping, not falling over that edge, but not being completely awake either? And so, can I position myself in that in-between place, that hypnagogic state, and so, and if so, how long can I do it? Because that's a great jumping off point, again, for later when we do the wake-induced lucid dreaming and that type of stuff, but also for other techniques that have nothing to do with lucid dreaming, only in a cursory way, let's say. So, when and how do we practice those, and how much time do we spend on them? And, and then there's that whole idea of, not getting, frenetic about it and just jumping from one thing to another, right? There's a balance there, but not being so, just doing one technique and it's becoming so stagnant, right? Because it's not really moving and you just keep applying yourself to it, but it's not really going anywhere. Well, everybody has a different balance of where they have to sort of mix these things up and say, okay, well, I'm erasing personal history as a way that we think about it, right? And like sort of shifting the gears a bit, right? So that can be something as minimal as, drinking your coffee, with your left hand if you're right-handed normally, and that's the way you normally do it, or, even, using a different coffee cup, or, you can see that I still have my little coffee problem because I keep talking about, all my examples exist around coffee first thing in the morning, right? So, but the other thing too is, you could do it by brushing your teeth with your left hand or signing your name with your left hand, anything to sort of mix it up. But now you've got all these other techniques, right? So like even mixing the order of the techniques might be a way to sort of interrupt, sort of like, again, there's that, in hypnosis, that idea of sort of interrupting the pattern, right? So when we do that, it sort of puts us in this, our subconscious sort of peeks out for a minute and says like, oh, What's that? Because I was expecting this, and something skipped in there. And so that draws our attention to that thing. And so it sort of gives it that moment. And in that moment of sort of switching things up a little bit and making us really focus and pay attention, because remember, we're hardwired to look at anything that might be in a broad sense dangerous to us, right? Something that interrupts our pattern, right? It's sort of like people who are on a regular eating schedule, right? When they go past that point, they start getting, it's like the new term now, hangry, right? Where it's like, I'm so hungry, I'm angry at everything. And so do I have enough control of my physical body, enough stoicism to say like, you know what? In the past, I might have been hungry for days, so it's like, I think I can not chew off the person's head next to me, for another hour before I get my meal or whatever it is. So, and so we can look at all those things, right? But it's those interruptions, right, that sort of make us pay attention and focus in a very sort of hyper vigilant way. And the same thing happens with our training techniques, right? We can mix up those patterns a little bit. It's like not to jump around, but the idea is that if you feel it's getting stagnant or that you need a little bit more hyper vigilance in your work, switching it up a little bit, going back and trying something else or in a different order, or using the nighttime routine in the daytime in the nighttime, those types of things, right? So like switching those things up, it also has this sort of weird capacity to make you feel as though you're immersing yourself in the work in a weird way, because your body's and your mind is always going like, oh, what am I going to do now? If you have it all written down, it's there, so you don't have to worry about that. But it's like, oh, okay, but I'm switching it up. So it's like, oh, normally I did this when the sun was coming up. Now I'm doing it when the sun's going down. Okay, that's a little strange. And what kind of differences is that going to bring up? But it feels like everything's new all the time. And that's the thing. And to be in that fresh state constantly, I mean, that's the ideal sort of medium in your mind that you want to have, so that you can create anything you want. And when all of that direction's going to one goal, right? In this case, lucid dreaming, it's going to crack that egg and open it up for you. And so you have a much better chance of, sort of getting in there and really getting those first exposures, which are just so important. Because again, when we get that first exposure, nobody's going to have to hold your feet to the fire, right? You're just going to be like, when can I go back?
Yeah. So, do you plan out your like pattern interrupting of yourself? Like when we're looking at this 2-week schedule that we've put together for people as an example of how you would pursue these techniques and mix them up and continue with, say, the training of the will, and continue with the different types of reality checks and perspective memory and different aspects of the lucid dreaming meditation and all that. Like do you like to sit down and like plan out like, okay, this is what my week's going to look like and this is how I'm going to mix it up for myself? Or do you just try to do it like spontaneously throughout the week?
I mean, I do give myself the okay to mix it up spontaneously if I need to. I think it's dangerous to do that in the very beginning, because now you don't know if it's your conscious mind just messing with you and trying to throw you off the track, because that's its job, right? Not as a malicious thing, but trying to keep you safe. And if it can discourage you from continuing, it's done its job, right? You've been folded back into the fold, back into the herd, and now you're moving along with everybody else. So I do give myself some, ability to sort of change on the spur of the moment if I need to, or I feel driven to do that. That's perfectly fine. But I usually print out a schedule like this for myself for a month at a time. And I do it probably, let's say, now, we're in the, just a little over the middle of May. So last week I would have done for June, and so the middle of the month is usually my time to sort of map out, because I know my schedule at least a month out from there. And I can say, okay, well, this weekend I've got this going on, or this week I have to travel here, or whatever it is. And so, I can fit my schedule around that, but I do still make out a training schedule for myself. So I don't have to think about it. Really, I think a lot of times, and this is, such a simple thing, right? And, but a lot of people don't, either they've never been told to do this, or, they never thought of it, but it's so simple, right? Because I think that a lot of people get stymied and, stuck or stagnant in a certain place because they're thinking too much about what they should do. It should be sort of almost a cold logic to start with. I mean, scheduling is a block, right? So it's sort of like this, I'm looking at this bird's eye view. On the left side of a page of paper, I have all the techniques that I want to incorporate for the next month. And then I have a blank schedule, and I write in the places that I know I have obligations and the times of those obligations. So whether it's work or family or whatever, because some things will be okay to dovetail in, right? And other things I can't get around, right? So I'll have to adjust my schedule there. So I start with those dates, right? Like I start with the dates that I have obligations. Like, what can I do on those dates? Because I'm limited now, right? I have this whole list of things that I can do, but there are certain things, like everything that we've taught so far, like reality checks. Okay, of course I can do those even during my obligations, right? Like if I'm with family and friends and whatever, and at a party, I can do reality checks there, right? They're just sort of under the radar, right? So I can obviously do them when somebody says something weird to me, or, I hear a weird conversation, or, right? Something like that. So those are, I think of those kinds of get-togethers as being, just fraught with opportunities. It's a target-rich environment for weird scenarios to come up, right? It's like, I mean, if you haven't been to a party, they can get kind of weird, It's like, crazy stuff comes up. People drop glasses, right? It's like, weird conversations and remembering things, that were really funny in the past, or maybe tragic or whatever, right? We have they're get-togethers of all of these different personalities that are out in the world on their own. And then we come together as these groups and, sort of, express ourselves to each other. We're not there just for advice, but if we get advice, that's great too. We want to know what other people are thinking. And so there's just this ripe ground for all these odd things to come up. So, I mean, you could be doing reality checks all night long. When you get used to it, really, it's like, I mean, you don't want it to be a nuisance for yourself, as well as, of course, you're not going to do reality, you're not going to be jumping up and down to see if you can fly through the party, or you're going to be like, somebody's going to go, there's something really wrong with you. And rightly so, right? So, but that's the idea. There's all kinds of opportunities because we don't have parties every day, you see? So it really does mimic a dream in some ways, right? We remember past parties. We project about future parties. We're in a party in the now, right? And there's all kinds of things that come up. And even within that, we're reminiscing, we're talking about future things, and we're talking about things that happened today. And then we're talking about things that happened 10 years ago, right? So it's like a very weird, almost dreamlike atmosphere to begin with, right? But that's just one example. But let's say I have business travel to go on. So I'm in a different bed, I'm in a different, hotel, or maybe somebody's house, right? So it's, there are those opportunities, or, where I'm going to be speaking in public for a whole day or maybe a whole weekend, right? So how many practices am I going to get in then? So I fill those out first, because it's like, okay, what can I do there? What is my schedule, and what can I do in these things? And, there are certain things that I can do, let's say, while I'm mowing the lawn, compared to
like what?
Again, reality checks is one of the best ones, but also I can do, certain types of gazing, right? Because it's not like I'm driving on the road with a bunch of other cars that I'm going to kill, right? So it's like, or be killed.
Right. So if you're doing the seeing program, you could do the gazing while you're
yeah. So it's like that kind of thing where it's like I just have this big open territory that I just have to mow either in circles or around or whatever, right? and I have to be careful, and I check all that stuff ahead of time. But then it's sort of like I can be, sort of in this gazing in it, and it's like you're changing your perspective on what it is that you're doing. I mean, there's the normal mowing and how you learn to do it and how you normally do it. But then it's like, if I change it, can I still, can I use the gazing and still keep my wits about me and know what's going on here? And, how long can I hold it? How long can I hold my focus? And does it make my, brain wander, or, those types of things, right? Can I practice my fourfold breath while I'm mowing the lawn? Of course I can, right? So that's a really good thing to do. I just put the click track in my ear, because I usually wear ear protection or whatever while I'm mowing the lawn or anything loud like that. And then I just do the fourfold breathing. If I'm walking and pushing a mower, I do the same thing. It's just I match it with my gait matches my breath, my count, right?
Right.
So, and that's all. So, those are all things that can be done there, So, if you have a riding lawnmower, of course, you're moving without walking, right? So, and again, you're not in a car scenario. So it's like moving without walking, can you get yourself to, is there something in your dream recall, or, your mental rehearsal, so projecting a certain dream, where you're moving along, without actually using your legs to mobile you through something. Can you imagine yourself, if you're on a riding lawnmower, to just be, can you get a level where you're not seeing the mower, you can sort of discount the sound, maybe during the fourfold breath or a gazing technique. And can you imagine yourself being in a dream where you're just sort of, gliding along the grass? So all of those mental rehearsal types of things, you'd be surprised that, that night you have a dream about mowing the grass, right?
Sure.
And that should be that should be a dream sign trigger, right? So that's like, oh, the next time I'm mowing the grass, and it's like I'm doing my reality check, looking at my hand, looking down, looking at the hand again, 5 fingers still, or everything's in place. Good. So there are tons of things that you can do. So I usually fill those things in first. Where are my obligations that it's not going to be just a normal day for me?
Mm-hmm.
And then I fill in everything else. So what else is, once I have those, it's like, okay, what else do I need to do here? I've got my burning meditation that I need to do. That's a definite, right? And, you've broken it down really nicely in the daytime and nighttime practices, right? So, and then, where's the cutoff in there? So usually I think of daytime practice, again, if we're not counting the weekend, let's just say normal Monday through Friday. So work days for most people. My daytime practice is going to be, obviously my morning routine when I first get up. And then of course, anything like reality checks I can bring into the office with me, and that type of thing. If I can get, if I have, let's say you're so lucky you get an hour lunch break, maybe you can do 20 minutes of burning meditation during that time, so it's like you just do the quicker version, right? Same thing with shamatha, you can do that, right? Where you're just practicing on, that convergent kind of focus, where it's just the whole outline of your body, all the sensations that are there, and then maybe, that's all you can do is the 8 minutes. Let's say you have 20 minutes. Maybe you do 8 minutes, on the whole body, 8 minutes on the, the abdomen area. So you've narrowed the focus down again. Look, just really making mental note of your breathing and the sensations that you feel in that abdomen area. And then the 4 minutes that remaining, you're focusing on the apertures of the nostrils, right? So that, then it's, you get your whole 20 minutes of time in, and you've just broken it down. So again, when you do these things, even with a shorter amount of practice, it gives sort of an urgency to the mind, right? So that it's like, ooh, I don't have, what is it traditionally, like 24 minutes to spend on each territory, like full body with shamatha, then the abdomen 24 minutes, then the nostrils 24 minutes, right? I mean, traditionally. So I don't have, that amount of time. I don't have an hour and 12 minutes to spend on this. So, but you've done it. And so, okay, so now the body says, ooh, it's like, this is a crunch time. What am I going to do? It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to, make it, as good as I can get within that, time period that I have allotted. And, sometimes I wouldn't do a minute, but, some people might get something out of that. So there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I would mix it up in whatever way feels comfortable for you, but sometimes that urgency makes the longer sessions better, right? Because the body's trying to push your boundaries a bit, push your envelope and make you, more efficient in a shorter amount of time. So that can be really valuable for your whole practice, right? So it's like, maybe, let's say you do the wake back to bed, but it takes you, 40 minutes to calm down before you even get into that hypnagogic state or a place where you, are profoundly relaxed, right? So, but maybe with a little urgency put in there, doing something completely different, right? Or shamatha breathing or whatever. You go to do shamatha, for your wake back to bed, and oh, gee, all of a sudden it's only taking you 20 minutes. So you've just cut your time down in half to do that by putting a little urgency someplace else. That can, kind of come back and help you with the other parts of the practice. So, but I really like the schedule because I find that people can really get stagnant by trying to figure out what to do when they're overwhelmed with a big list. It's like, what do I start with? And, do I always start with the same thing? I mean, this is a place where you can just really coldly, with a cold mind and a bigger, broad, objective view, you can say, I just have copies of those things once I write them out, and I just put check marks next to them once I've put them on the schedule. And so I know, okay, well, now I need to do something else. And, where am I going to fit this in? And, the things that, again, I mean, from my training and what I've seen from other people as well, is that the burning meditation is huge with this, with all trainings, but, even with lucid dreaming, burning meditation is a good one to keep up with. So I would say at least once a week, you want to do that. More than that, it's just gravy for you, but it's at least once a week. That's a critical thing. So, and everything else you want to weave in there. Of course, it's about lucid dreaming. So in this case, so, you want to put as many things that are going to help you with that, like, dream sign and triggers, prospective memory triggers, right? So anytime I see this, and give yourself a target for the day, then I'm going to give myself a reality check. Anything that's strange, going to give myself a reality check, right? So, fourfold breathing, relaxing the body through the day. I mean, how profoundly can you relax the body in 60 seconds? It's a good goal. It's a good goal, and it only takes 60 seconds to practice, right? But if you keep pushing yourself toward that, right, it's like the body starts to get the idea, right? The mind starts to get the idea, and there's a benefit from that at the end. So, and so when you go to do, 15 minutes of relaxation, it's like, wow, now you're really sinking into this much deeper place. And, and that's usually from trying to do it a little speedier during the day, right? And I think anybody could find a minute, to just stop and do that, whether you're sitting, standing, whatever, as long as you can find a place where you can actually relax. I mean, you don't have to close your eyes either. I mean, try it with eyes open, try it with eyes closed. It's like whatever you're capable of doing, mix it up a little bit, have some fun with it, see where you're going to get, these little, spikes, these little surges of energy from that when you accomplish something, especially when it happens spontaneously, when you're not expecting it. It's like, it's really funny how that works. And that little, energetic push gives you the impetus to do more, right? Because you're getting some little jolts out of it here and there. So I would say, the schedule is, an excellent idea, as far as that goes, to just sort of take the stagnation or the hesitation out of just going right in to do the practices. Once it's there, it's like, oh, this is what I'm doing next, boom, do it. Oh, this is what I'm doing next, boom, do it. I don't have to think about it. It's already been thought about before, so I'm just following it.
Cool. So could somebody use the one that we've created just to, I mean,
Oh, sure.
and
It's a great place
to
to
say
start.
like, okay, we've got all these things, let's try it this way, try 2 weeks using the integration of all these techniques this way, see how it works, and then kind of use that as a baseline for like, this is how I could adjust, or maybe I
That's
didn't
right.
have enough time for that, or maybe I found I had more time when I was really thinking about all these different practices, and then make, everybody kind of writing up their own schedules for as we continue, but just with this as kind of a rough idea of like, okay, I'm engaged in doing this practice like every day in some capacity, whether it's like returning to the training of the will because I think I need more of that. I feel like I'm not following through enough with the things that I said I was going to do, or I found that hey, I'm actually sleeping really well even on the nights when I do wake back to bed techniques, and those work really well for me. So I could put some more of those in there, and I think I'd still be okay and get enough sleep and all that, right? I mean,
Right.
that's kind of how we should think about it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you definitely want to mold it to yourself once you have sort of that template to work off of, and then, try that on its own. And then, if you feel like, now I can tailor it a little bit to my own personality and what works best for me. Obviously, you want to lead with your strengths. So, it's like most of the things that we've given you are they're both foundational, but some things can be a little bit optional as far as like how much effort you're putting into them, right? So uh, I think things like mental rehearsal and the lucid dream meditation, which is the same kind of thing, right? It's like, those things are really important because you're training those pathways to sort of open up for you. And, just with a little impetus, it just already wants to run down that path, right? So it's the same thing. And the more that we train that, the better response is going to be, and the quicker response is going to be. So, working out really, even at some point, like if you don't have it already, like how many people actually have their induction words in their head that seem awkward to them still? They're
Oh,
just
when
not
we're doing the
flowing.
mnemonic induction before we go to
Yeah.
sleep at night. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, because I mean, I remember in the beginning, it was a while. I was stumbling over certain things, and, I wanted to make sure that I was getting everything in and not, negating what I just said or being redundant or, it's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, you can make it into verse if you want to make it, more mystical or whatever for you, make a little witch's chant in there, it's like, double bubble, boil in trouble, whatever, so it's like, okay, something that just makes you smile, right? And like gives you a lighter attitude about it, if that's the case, right? And but says exactly what it is that you want, kind of puts it out there exactly with no ambiguity, and that you're not stumbling over because it's not you, right? You want to tailor all these things so that they're you. And when you speak them, it feels like that's the way you would say it, right? There's no stumble there. It's like, that's the way I say that. That's good. That's exactly what I mean. And I feel good about saying that. I could say that out loud or over and over again, and I'm always going to remember it. That's how you know when something is yours, right? It's like you can articulate it in a way that, there's no, like, you're not thinking about it at the time. You're just saying it, right? Because
Mhm.
it's just there. It's yours. You own that now.
It's an
So
interesting point too. It's kind of like, I mean, you're always emphasizing like the importance of like making the practice your own, and really, and I believe that you did mention that. You talked about that when we did the mnemonic induction technique video. You were saying, you want to come up with the words that are right for you, that state that intention to lucid dream tonight, and that you're going to remember to do it, or that you'll wake up in your dreams. But I don't know. I just think I don't have anything to add to that other than like re-emphasizing how important I think that is, like, and how, like, when you say that, I go, oh yeah, like I really need to sit down and like do that, like so that, like you said, make the words your own. It's like, it makes it different than just saying, oh, here's this technique from this book, and you say these words as if like the words themselves do it or whatever, but it's more like your own personal like wrapper or like expression of that intent, but verbalized in the way that like you use your own language and like express that intent for yourself, right? I mean,
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Because then it's like when people talk about coming from their heart, that's what they're talking about, right? It's like it's words that are coming from here, like you really feel that, right? It's like, and not that it's going to be overwhelming, you're going to be blubbering in bed, because that's going to just be embarrassing. So don't do that. But it's like, but the idea is that, look, when you read that, it's like, that's exactly my sentiment. This is what I'm trying to convey to myself, to my subconscious, to my conscious mind. It's like, you're important and I want to engage this. I'm important and I want to engage this. We should all be working together on this. And so that's why, like, even subtle things, like instead of tonight I will dream, that's different than the next time I'm dreaming. And so those two things, one's a command, and the other one is sort of like, oh, well, the next time I'm going to do this. It's like, that was great, but the next time I'm going to do this. That's a little more playful, you see? So it's sort of like those two things. I mean, when I started out, I did more of the commands, right? Tonight I will dream. Tonight I will remember my dreams. And so it started like that, right? It was like commanding yourself, commanding the fact. I mean, we all know we're dreaming. It's more like, do we remember them or not? And so, but the other way is a lot more playful. So it's a little bit more engaging, right? Unless you have a personality, let's say somebody just needs that commanding. I know plenty of people that do it that way, and it's very effective for them. For me, it was just like a little bit more like, when I really started thinking about it, it's like, I don't command a lot. I don't, it's not really me. I felt like at this point, it was sort of like, how do I engage? It felt like I was fighting myself in some ways. And so, or at least a certain level of me was sort of fighting it, like, cause I know for myself, if somebody commanded me to do something, if I didn't feel like I was on that same page, I'd resist pretty, stringently, let's say. So it'd be like, oh yeah, really? Nah, I don't think so. So it's like, I mean, this is all me, right? So it's like, if I'm going to openly rebel in that way, why wouldn't I do that internally too, if it's me? So, this way it was sort of a little bit more engaging. Hey, the next time I'm dreaming, I'm going to remember my dreams. How does that sound? It's like this little, it's like this little conversational thing, kind of like, because if it was a friend of mine, if I said that, like, hey, the next time I come here, I think I'm going to try the shrimp. What do you think? It'd be like, yeah, that sounds good. It's like that kind of conversational, attitude. For me, that worked a lot better. It was more engaging to me, so more heartfelt. And so the same approach with this, the same way, like, oh, the next time I'm dreaming, and putting away that analytical part that says, hey, idiot, you dream every night. It's going to be tonight. You're getting ready to go to sleep. I put that away, and it's conversational. That seems to be my my overall way of communicating in these matters, is much more conversationally than commanding or demanding or forceful. Right? I mean, I can be forceful, but the idea is that, if I don't need to be, why? And so, so for me, find your own rhythm, find your own way of articulating the sentiment, as long as you're getting those things. It's like, I try to make it as short and as sweet as possible, short and directly to the point, with, little to no ambiguity there at all. And so, and then craft it, and because it's so short, it shouldn't take too long. And if you're not sure, just use one of these and until you kind of figure it out on your own. And if you're stumbling over it or you keep forgetting it, it's like, that usually tells me that, something's not quite there, not quite heartfelt, right? When it's heartfelt, it's not, I mean, how many people remember like the lyrics to their favorite songs? Maybe on the first couple times, right? Something sticks in your head and it's like you hear that song, people, I mean, think about it this way, you're maybe by yourself, right? And you're in the car and you're listening to this song and you really like the song, but you've only heard it a couple times. So you only remember the tagline, or you only remember a lyric in the middle of this verse or whatever it is. And so it's like, but you add it in when it's there. It's not like you go, oh, I don't know the whole song, I guess I'll just listen. No, you add in where you can, and pretty soon you memorize those things, right? And so because, it's heartfelt. And so I think of the same thing with this stuff. It's like, when it's right, you won't trip on it. It'll just move smoothly, and you could say it over and over again, and it won't feel strange to you. And I think that that's the best indicator that I can give you for how things, should feel, and an indicator that you really own that, and that's good. So,
And do you think that that's true, like with kind of all of the practices, like in some ways invoking that like lighthearted but heartfelt attitude toward the intention that, we're doing this practice to progress with our lucid dreaming, and whether it's shamatha or lucid dream meditation or whatever, it's like,
or burning meditation or anything really. It's like, remember that I always, one of those little, I don't know, nuanced tricks, if you will, that I always recommend to people. It's not like I'm keeping this stuff secret, right? It's like, I always say what I'm going to do and what I'm expecting from it before I do it, right? Any practice, even burning meditation, I walk into the place where I do it and I literally say, I'm here to do the burning meditation, to burn off the stress and mental fatigue that I've acquired since the last time I did this. And so, and I expect to feel lighter and to achieve a glowing state, from this, and that it will, literally will burn off anything that I don't need. So, and so just something heartfelt like that, it's not always the same. It's not something rote that I'm just saying the words and not feeling what I want, right? It's like, I'm literally there. If I have a specific thing, it's like, I'll walk in, I'll say, in this case, like, I'm here to do the burning meditation to burn off stress and mental fatigue. I found out through my observation, again, very conversational. I found out through my, observation of mind that I'm really afraid of falling, that fear of falling. And I know that sometimes that's present in, as a lucid dream takes hold or whatever. So I'd like to, really burn that off. I'd like to burn off that, if that's holding me back because I'm afraid that might happen, I want to burn that off so that it becomes a very, inconsequential part of what's going on. So it won't hold me back from experiencing lucid dreaming to the fullest. Something like that, just a very conversational type of, this is what I'm expecting. I'm here to do this, and this is what I'm expecting from that. Even help me do that, to other or whatever aspects of yourself that are balanced that can help you achieve that goal. How do you get if you don't ask, right? It's like, that's the whole thing. So that's how we sort of incorporate that, those, I hate to say devotional aspects, but those prayer type aspects of asking for help. Help is all around us. We just need to ask, right? And we ask in the right way, we get. And if we don't ask in the right way, then we get something else. So,
what does it mean to ask in the right way?
I think it's, be specific about what it is that you're trying to do. And for me, it's a conversational thing. For other people, it would be demanding, like, I'm here to do, I'm here, I'm going to burn off, stress and mental fatigue, through this burning meditation operation. And, and I
want some damn help.
I want some damn help, damn it. It's like, whatever. and I deserve this because this is my latent potential and, you know, my birthright and blah, 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 blah. So it's like, you know, there's that sort of an almost a spiritual entitlement edge to it. You know, let's put it that way in the weirdest sense, right? So, but you know, for me, it's definitely, even those things are more conversational, and I find for myself, I get more traction with that. You know, so it's like you need to find your own voice in this work, and where applicable, apply it. Right? If there's a very, you know, it's not like I'm saying change the burning meditation. No, I would never do that, right? Because that's something that's been in the form that it is for, we don't even know how long, millennia, thousands of years, right? And even other places, other types of burning meditation of that same thing. It's a very straightforward form, right? We know that it works. You don't want to reinvent the wheel just to say you changed it somehow. And I don't know, you know, I'll give you the same advice, or I'll give you the same statement, let's say, that my teacher that taught me that gave everybody, including me. You know, it's like, we would say, you know, there was that dreaded if question, which is, you know, kind of illegal in those camps, right? It's like, because if just means there's a million variations. We can't possibly go over all of them, right? And so, and we'd say, well, what if, you know, already starting off on a bad foot, you know, what would happen if you know, put blue instead of red, or green instead of yellow, or whatever? And his simple and very direct answer was, I don't know. Not challenging you to say like nothing, that it's all in your head, or saying that, you know, like, oh, horrible things will happen to you. It's literally, I don't know, because I've never been dumb enough to try that. So, you know, I mean, because there are certain things that you have some leeway, but certain things work so well the way they've been set up, and we have to assume that the people that actually set that up, you know, achieve that by either experimentation and finding out this was the very best way for that to work, or getting information from other, you know, for lack of a better term, and said, this is how you do this, you know, don't alter it, because it will have this effect, and that's the effect you're looking for. And so,
yeah, I was reading the Tibetan Yogas of Dream and Sleep,
yeah,
which
sure,
is, you
great
know, a
book.
classic book on lucid dreaming, and he was articulating that many of the practices that we have in like many different traditions are actually like teachings that were received from other or spiritual beings, or contacts that were made in lucid dreaming states. And he was saying that basically, like, you know, those teachings would be received like in a sequence of lucid dreaming experiences, night after night after night, and they would just pick up where the last one left off, and they would come back, write down everything, you know, everything, and so they would keep going until they got the complete set of teachings, or the meditation, or the practice, or whatever that would facilitate these you know, goals, like something like, you know, clearing with the burning meditation, right? So,
Yeah,
not to say that that's the source of that. We don't necessarily know the source of all these things, right? But the idea is that like they're designed in a way that produces a maximal effect, and then they should be done in that way.
that's right. That's right. But, you know, the way that you approach it and the way you engage it, that's the part that, you know, if you learned it in a way that was sort of this solemn way, you might be comfortable with that, or maybe not. Maybe you get more effect out of it being a little bit more conversational, or a little bit more relaxed. And if that's the case, that's the part you can change and develop in yourself, right? And approach these things with that attitude. I mean, imagine, I can say for myself that that's the case. That has definitely been the case with a number of things that I learned in a very, let's say, for lack of a better word, a solemn way, and then change them over time once I had a good handle on them. And I didn't change the practices, I just changed the way that I approached them, right? So I didn't have to be dressed a certain way, or, you know, have certain things going at the same time, or any of those things. The critical things, the principles, absolutely, you know, intact. But my own sort of uh, the way literally the way that I approached the whole process was definitely more of my own at that point. And that's something that I learned, not directly being taught, but just being shown that, and having enough time in that I could actually see that, you know, for myself.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody actually said that to me, but I did, you know, in hindsight, I remember that, you know, a number of my teachers doing exactly the same process did it in different ways. You know, they approached it in different ways. The act itself was the same, but they approached it from their own standpoint. Their personality, their mannerisms were quite different. And so, and that's where I picked that up from. And ever since I've done that, things have flowed so much more fluidly and so much more productively. You know, it's like you don't want to set up more sacred cows for yourself than you need, right? Because it limits you. It makes you fit inside somebody else's box, and that's a very difficult thing to do. And you know, it's another point that you could stagnate on, right? Because it's like, you could literally say, oh, I don't have the right color candle, I can't do that. You know, it's like, well, what if you never have the right color candle? You're never going to do that practice again. You know, so it's like, you know, if you always learned it with, you know, literally just as a light, right? Do you think that in the high mountains of Tibet, if they run out of, you know, a certain color candle, that they're not going to do a specific meditation because they don't have that color? No, they're going to do it with whatever source of flame they can figure out at the time. If it's tallow, if it's a lamp. I mean, look at the traditions, wherever they were, you know, wherever area of the world they were in, you know, they used, let's say, a flame, right? A source of flame. Some places, you know, you go to South America, you go to Mexico, you know, they're going to use a fire, right? An open fire in a pit, right? With maybe special wood or whatever, but they'll use a fire, right? You go to Tibet, you're going to get a, you know, some kind of lard candle, right? And you go to India, it's going to be something else. You go to Middle East, it's going to be a lamp, right? Or, you know, it could be any kind of oil in a lamp, an oil lamp, right? So it's like but does that change the, you know, the way that it affects you? Not really. You know, it's like they all have their flame, which is the source that they're concentrating on, not the thing that's making the source, right? We need to remember what's important and be practical about this as well, right? If it's some, you know, specific thing where you need that color in order to do that, well, you better damn well make sure you have those things, right? Or figure a way around it, right? And if it works, it works. If you try it and it doesn't work, well, you can blame it on the color of your candles, right? It's kind of a lame excuse, but still.
Right.
So anyway, but you know, you want to, you know, but no matter what it is that you're doing, make it your own. You know, make it the flavor of your personality. That's part of figuring out the observation of mind as well, and knowing yourself, right? You really know yourself, you know. Am I the commanding, demanding kind of person? You know, and we all are in some territories, but am I really one of those people that can really demand things of a spiritual nature? Or, you know, am I somebody who's more conversational? You know, not that you're going to set up some kind of bargains or whatever, you know, nothing like that, right? It's just a matter of like, how would you engage it if you could engage it? If other was a mirror reflection of you, how would you deal with yourself? Right? Would you be like, would you just, I would laugh myself silly if I saw myself like going, hey, you're going to dream tonight. And when you dream tonight, you're going to, it's like, I'd be like, I wouldn't be able to keep it together. Right. I'd be just like, oh dude, you are so off the mark. I'm out of here, so, but a conversation I could have. Right. And so if other was going to represent itself, to me in a way that was personal to me, it would be somebody not demanding, but somebody, conversationally, for me, that's when I have the most, the most rapport, the most, and I get the most out of those interactions. So why would I not do that for things like this that are really important to me?
Right. And it seems like, for many people, they'll want to go in that direction of having more interaction with aspects of the one that are other or spiritual beings or
Absolutely.
et cetera. And we'll certainly get more into that as the practice progresses through the lucid dreaming. But it seems like kind of a good thing to figure out now when you're just trying to figure out how to talk to your own subconscious to get yourself in the game and actually be present within a lucid dream and know yourself through the observation meditation to know, like, this is how I want to interact with those things when I can actually do it, because I know myself well enough to know how I want to represent myself when I'm there, how I want to communicate what I'm comfortable with, and who I really am, and how can I best express that kind of interaction, and like, so I can get the information that I really need or get the feedback that I want or whatever it is. And you'll know more what you are doing it for to begin with, and then how you want to interact when you're there as well. So it's kind of like training wheels for that in a way, right? I mean,
it is. And, and just think, I mean, some of this stuff is really uncomfortable, right? I mean, it's like, it's odd. It's, things that we maybe haven't explored before, we're dipping in our toes into areas that are, sort of deep within our subconscious, right? So it's like, would you rather do that, stiff as a board and, hyper vigilant, like waiting for the next thing to jump out, and like, oh, I made the mistake, and oh, I didn't say it in the right way, and or would it be easier for you to be at your ease to go into it and to still have things, sort of present themselves that are odd and unusual and, phenomena that isn't the norm for you, but be in a comfortable state? I mean, I think that most people would say they'd rather be comfortable than, I mean, think about like the first time you ever had to wear like formal attire, right? It's like, it changes the whole way that you do things. And if it changes it for the better, then that's fine, right? It's like, you don't get dressed up in a tux to go drink at the local pub, right? It's like, it'll change the whole experience for you, probably not so pleasantly, but, but at the same time, you don't go to the opera in your, clothes that you just worked in the field all day with, right? It's not going to be the same thing. You're not going to have as comfortable a time as you would if you sort of matched the territory, right? But at the same time, it's like, don't put more of that stuff on yourself than you need to do, right? I would get very, very comfortable. And I would say, as you become, somebody who's, self-actualized, truly, that none of that other stuff will matter anyway. Many of the accoutrement, whatever of what we do goes by the wayside, right? When they understand that it's all here. All of these things are foci that we can, sort of hone our will and hone our thought process with, and help us to, converge our focus on, and help us to establish a certain territory within our minds and build that up in a good way, right? But once we really have that down, and we really have it down, and you're barely even noticing the foci anymore, you really don't need them. It's not something that's implicit in having this done. It's
And
just
just
implicit in doing it in the beginning because you need the coaching.
right. And just to be clear, like when you say foci or the accoutrement of the practice, you're talking about like when people maybe wear a certain dress, like a robe or something, if they're doing that for a practice or a personal ritual,
Sure.
something like that, or something that they've been trained to do, or it's like you were
Right.
saying about certain types of candles or certain any kind of like thing that, you know, whatever, any like a, I don't know. I'm just trying to think
Certain
of
type of incense, certain type of candlelight, certain color of candles, certain,
stones or
anything that might be put on an altar that would focus your mind in that direction. A picture, right? Or, of a deity or anything that would sort of relate to that. Some people, if they're in shamanism, it would be their if they're in South America, maybe they're mesa, right, with the different stones that they've collected over the years. And those are all just foci, right? They're just a way to direct your mind, to help you direct your mind. They're, they inherently, they have their own signature, but at the same time, it's only to help you focus your mind in a certain direction, right? So that's all. That's the real power of them. And I'm not making light of them. They do, without them, it's very difficult, very difficult to do this all in your head in the beginning. Very difficult. So, those things can really help. So, but, in the end, are they critically essential? Like if you don't have them, can you never practice again? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Unless you think you can't. Whether you think you're right or wrong, you're right. It's like, it's what's up here in the end. How can you develop that? And these things just are tools to help you develop that. That's all.
right. And of course we haven't talked about utilizing many of those things throughout these programs. And I think that,
No.
in when there are cases where those things could be important, we'll certainly include them in the instruction. But at the same time, I feel like one of your, I feel like you're just, with everything that we're doing, it's like we're trying to help everyone enhance the things that they're already doing, right?
Yeah.
And that's why lucid dreaming in some sense is one of the most powerful techniques that we can learn, because it will enhance our spiritual practice and our lives, no matter what our brand of spirituality is.
That's right. That's right. It's the thing that will, in my opinion, it is the thing that will cut down your learning curve towards, if you want to call it enlightenment, it will cut it down dramatically. I would easily say tenfold compared to what it would normally be. So, and that's different for everyone, right? But it's definitely a vehicle to move you along your path, whatever that is, in the most rapid way possible. And, I don't mean time is the enemy of all people, right? So no matter what you're trying to do, whether it's trying to get enough accomplished in the course of a daylight hours, or whether you're trying to achieve something in your life, right? Time is the biggest enemy, nothing else. So, do you have enough time to actually do this? And so, I would say that in that case, then lucid dreaming is indispensable.
Right. Cool. Well, thanks. And I think we'll wrap it up there. And again, you guys can download the schedule in the download section as an example. And it was interesting. It's always interesting where the conversation goes. We started out with cold scheduling all the way to heartfelt, making the practice your own. And that's just, it's an interesting balance. And I feel like a really good conversation from some like a dry beginning to very very poignant, very meaningful dialogue. So thank you.
Great.
All right, well, enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys in the next segment.
We'll see you later.